The way I think about it is more like about individual choice and individual freedom. And if I want to say that I have feminine energy and people view me as masculine or vice versa, then that's their problem, that's not my problem. And for me, that's what feminism is about giving people the choice to act in accordance with however the hell they want to.
But that's a very dangerous society.
That's not how feminism started, though. Yeah, we went from, wanting equal rights for women and equality for women, and now it's
humanizing
kind of
women, right?
Humanizing women, making it to where I think we all agree, women now are equal to men, and with like third and fourth wave feminism, especially fourth wave feminism, it's kind of turned into individuality, like you said.
All right, so I found this video on Jubilee. This is male feminists versus female anti-feminists. And I wanted to show it to you, share it with you, and talk about it. Of course, I'm only going to hit the highlights here because this video is 55 minutes long. I will leave a link down in the comments to the original. Now, I do want to thank everybody for stopping by and supporting my channel. Please remember to like, comment, share, subscribe. Make sure that you're still subscribed because YouTube doesn't subscribe people every single day. Now, let's dive into this video here.
If you agree, step forward. Women have more privileges today than men.
I went back and forth on this one.
All of the women come forward. Of course, the men are feminists here, so they're not going to come forward. But it's true. Women have more privileges than men. It may not be very many, but it still is the case that women have more privileges than men do, even codified in laws in the Western world.
Thinking about the difference between more and different, I think women have distinctly different privileges than men have, but with this new
Holy crap!
Those are some huge breasts you have!
I think this woman is some sort of influencer or something. I'm guessing. I don't know, maybe she's, maybe she does adult films. I don't know.
There's affirmative action hiring and scholarships where women, sometimes even regardless of academic standing or achievement, are prioritized above men. But men also have different privileges that they get to access. I struggle to say more, but I think I do agree with the feminist movement. Now there is more.
If you are born into this life with a vagina, you inherently have 10 times more privilege than a man. From the time they are little, girls are always like doted on and you're so pretty and cute.
Very coddled.
They're coddled, right? As they should be. We want that feminine, nurturing energy in them. You can kind of be a degenerate woman and have a hot body and be a millionaire on OnlyFans. Men don't have that privilege. Now, women don't have to work to get a guy. They're just hot. And then guys come to them and spend their resources on them. A man has to prove himself. He has to build a body. He has to make money. He has to build influence. He has to become a protector, a provider. Women just have that naturally by just having a vagina, as I said.
That's why it's
Preach it, sister. Yeah, this is the thing that I ran into. I figured this out when I was 20, that women have it easier than men because I couldn't get a girlfriend. I did actually have a girlfriend when I was 20. Not the whole time I was 20, but most of the time. But I noticed that girls could just get a guy if they wanted one. If a pretty girl came up to me and asked me out, I would probably be like, yeah, let's do it. Let's go out. Sure, why not? But I was asking girls out and they're like, dude, I don't want to go out with you. I got a lot of, I don't even know you. I'm like, that's what dating is for. Hello. That's why, I would ask you out instead of asking you to marry me. But so what women want today, if you don't know this, men, you gotta talk to women a lot. You gotta be like, hey, we're friends. And then you can pick up women. The way you do it is usually, unless you're like Chad or Tyrone, the way that you do it is you have to be at least marginally good looking. And then you get their attention and chat them up in a public place where you see them. And if the rapport is good, they'll want to do stuff more.
frustrating because the feminist movement has been all about women acting like they don't have rights and acting like they have it pretty hard in the modern day world. I can't think of a single thing that I don't have that a guy has, or
that they only have. I would say the one thing I would say is the safety thing. That's the only thing that I would say is that women are disadvantaged from, by nature, women are not as physically strong. I mean, you're physically strong, but as physically strong.
I'll take it.
It's great biceps. And men just are. And if you're walking down a dark alley as a woman, you're going to feel some type of way sometimes, right?
Okay, so she's totally wrong here with this crap. Men are not safer than women. Men are the victims of violent crime more often than women are. Just because you have muscle and you know how to throw a punch and you have weight behind you doesn't mean that you're safe. Yeah, you don't want a woman walking around the streets of the big city at night alone. That's dangerous. That there's something could happen. But things could happen to men too. So women are smaller and weaker. Yeah, they can be damaged more easily by a man, but yet men want to protect women. So it doesn't equivocate.
That's why we need guns.
Well, there you go.
I'm going to talk a little bit more about like the judicial system. When it comes to, let's say, domestic dispute, if a woman calls the police, they automatically show up, arrest the man. This is the Duluth model, I think is how you pronounce it. And that's already in place. It's not necessarily like a right or anything, but it's certainly in all of the police departments. Is if feminism is all about equality, why would you automatically arrest a man? When they arrest him, his name is in the newspaper automatically. The fact that a woman can say Jane Doe.
I don't know if you noticed that in the background, the guys were laughing. See, if you look up here in the upper right corner, guys are talking and laughing. I don't know if it's about what the women are saying, but probably. I mean, they're listening to what the women are saying so they can counter it. So they're probably just like, yeah, stupid women. They don't know what they're talking about.
In the newspaper automatically. The fact that a woman can say Jane Doe and she doesn't have to put her name out there, what skin in the game is there?
It kind of invalidates the women who do come forward and who have faced rape and sexual assault and all of that, because then it kind of turned into a Twitter hashtag.
That's correct.
Where women were like, oh, you know what, I'm going to do it. Like, this seems fun. Like,
For clout,
it's not
for
fun.
clout.
I think it's a mixed bag. I don't think the Me Too movement was inherently harmful. It's the Me Too movement when you
Right.
couple it with something like believe all women. That's when it
Yes.
becomes
And the
inherently harmful.
victimization
It
of women who
encouraged people.
aren't really victims.
She's wrong there. The Me Too movement is inherently harmful. The reason the Me Too movement is harmful is because all these women started coming forward and saying, you know, I was a victim of this, and men are to blame, just all men, just, you know, and men are going, wait a second, this happened how many years ago? Wait a second, why didn't you say something at the time? Wait a second, you're putting these allegations onto men, and you don't have any proof, but yet these men are getting in trouble because of it. And now that's where she's saying it's along with believe all men or believe all women, and it's just like, no, it's actually a problem even if you don't believe all women, because people are going to believe the story anyway. There's people out there that are going to believe the story anyway. People can come forward with accusations. I gotten in trouble at work for women coming forward with accusations against me, and then I'm fired over just supposedly saying stuff that's inappropriate, because women can just do that because people are going to believe women. And then it turns out these women later are getting fired because they're crazy. So
Prompt is, do women have more privileges? We have privileges simply by virtue of being women. We have privileges with affirmative action. We have privileges in family court, and we have privileges as far as being believed and forgiven. It's something that should be acknowledged.
That's correct.
Can I have the disagreeer step forward?
I appreciated the distinction of more versus different privileges. You can't just use a broad brush and paint the entire debate and say, all right, well, this is men have more than women, that's it. Like, women that must inherently then have no privileges. That's not how it works. And that's where we start to get into the idea of like intersectionality, where another woman who had a different experience, if it was a trans woman, if it was a woman of color, if it was
But
a
I
woman
don't
who
think we're
was
including trans women into feminism.
all right, so this comes down to individuality then. This is why intersectionality is not a real thing. Because what it says, well, what about this woman over here? I mean, there's racism against her, and she's also a woman, so there's sexism against her. And okay, well, what if there's a language barrier? What if she's an illegal immigrant? What if she's a criminal on top of that? What if she's gay? What if she's just basically, finally, it gets all the way down to this person here saying, oh, you can't paint with a broad brush. Yeah, you can't. You're right. But then you want to paint with a broad brush. Idiot.
and I think we definitely should.
I don't
Like,
think we should
think
at
we
all. I think that trans women should not be a part of the feminist movement because a man, just because they, wake up and feel like they can be a woman one day, could come in and then suddenly know what it's like to have a period or know what it's like to have a child. It's anything
Based.
men replacing women in sports to men replacing women on podcasts during Women's Month and when we're talking about women's health, or you've even got biological men who think they're women going to the White House speaking on behalf of all women.
I do have a question for you based on the prompt, though, because you've lived in both experiences, at least socially. I'm curious, when you transition to male and people start
Oh, so this individual here is a female who's pretending to be a man.
perceiving you as male, like most people did today, what privileges changed for you, or what did you see enter your life that you didn't have before?
Yeah, and that's sort of where a lot of my beliefs in feminism do lie, is because being out into the world as a gay woman was the way I was seen. Men treated me definitely not nearly as well as they did. I was bullied in school. I had people call me slurs, and it seemed like it was because I was threatening to like the male structure that we are in, where it's like male and female, because I was a female who liked
Oh, male and female is the male structure that we're in. I didn't realize that was the male structure.
females. I was somehow infringing on that, and so they didn't like me. Things change naturally when you socially transition and are perceived by the world in a different way. When I transitioned from being perceived as female to the world to just pretty much passing or blending full-time as male, was that I got a lot more respect from other men. People listened to me and took me seriously in a social.
Yeah, you know what the problem is here is you are a gay woman, so men didn't take you seriously or want to respect you because there's nothing that you have to offer them. You are basically the worst kind of human being to a man in that situation. There's nothing that you can offer because women are not as good at doing things that are useful in the economy. Let's put it that way. Because how many women work in construction? How many women work in any kind of these hard physical labor jobs. Very few, because they just can't handle it. They don't want to do it. And then, so you can't be of value to men that way. And then you are off limits sexually. So
setting, people aren't going to harass women who are around me if I'm walking with them at night, which is just a benefit I never thought about.
how is that a benefit? How is that a benefit to a man? Please explain how women not getting harassed because you're around them is a benefit to men.
Privileges that women have that men don't, but also there's privileges that men have that women don't. I don't think women
Guy's shirt says alpha elite. He's clearly on steroids.
are more privileged in our society because I could get a woman pregnant and I could just run away.
They could get you.
No, you can't. You could do that and just disappear. You could. That's a possibility. But if she knows your name, they're going to hunt you down and get you for child support.
For child support, which they
But
do.
are you saying she can't run away? Are you saying
They could
she
take
can't
your
run away
money.
from the pregnancy?
But you could
But
actually
yes.
physically leave.
Leave.
I know what you're
Physically,
saying.
at the end of the day, like, I don't see women having more privileges than men because we don't have the same, there's no way to objectively measure it.
Well, and in the scenario that you pointed out, I mean, if a woman was pregnant, she wouldn't be able to get an abortion in most
In some
parts
states,
of the country.
yes. In some states,
That's
no.
That's a
absolutely
major
true as well.
disadvantage.
You can't get an
Corner case.
abortion, but children can go get a gender change at 12 with a
Feels
parent
like you're very
at 15
fixated on that.
without consent.
That's not true.
It feels like you're very
as
fixated
someone
on
went
that.
through
I know
today.
the laws as well. I've been
I
saying.
went through this.
I know, in some states you can, and in Thailand you can go at 16 and get your everything cut off.
Guys, it's less than
See, the trans person just, I went through it. It doesn't happen that way, but that's what we're seeing happen nowadays. And when this person went through it, it's probably years ago. He probably went through the transition years ago, so it wasn't as easy then. Now it's a lot easier.
5%.
I know.
It
It's such a
doesn't
small-
matter.
it's such a small
It doesn't
subset
matter.
of the
But
population.
But you can't say that about it. Does matter though. When you have a child, you're not a
That's
parent
between
yet.
the parent and the child.
Can I ask you a question though, or ask the group a question? There's more world leaders who are male, and typically I think
Good, and that's a
leadership.
good thing.
I know it's
Well, he
weird
was
coming
talking
from
to
me,
me.
but I do want to know. It doesn't bum you out that it's less likely for a woman to become president?
I don't feel bummed out because I know that if I want to pursue something that I want to do, I have every capability to do it in this country.
I don't feel bummed out. Women should not be in positions of extreme leadership like presidents, et cetera, because we're too emotional.
I'm
Men are
feeling a lot of
emotional, too.
emotions
Men
right
can be
now.
impulsive.
very
I'm
much.
not saying that men can't be
Like,
emotional.
we had a
Men are
president,
more
we had a president who
logical.
would literally just
And now
go
we
on
got
Twitter
president whose
every
brain
day,
doesn't
every
work.
second.
Wait, one person, so she
Trump is evil, I know. He would go on Twitter every day. That means he's not a president. That means he shouldn't be president because he tweeted things. For shame.
To be logical and to be sound is not something defined by gender. It's just something defined by your own
the
psychology.
left and
No, it's defined by gender largely. Gender is a huge influence on that.
it
That's just
actually
false.
is though.
That's
That's
just
not
false.
false. It's not
Come on,
false.
man.
It
Come
is
on.
not
Really?
false.
Really?
No, your question about leadership, I think, is a very poignant question because a lot of
You can just look at these men versus these women here and see that the women are more emotional just by the way that they present themselves. The men are dressed for utility and the women are dressed for beauty.
while men are highly competitive, they are highly analytical, systematic, they're willing to put in that time and take extreme measures to gain career status.
Exactly.
But in an
Perfectly
egalitarian
said.
society, it's about having that choice to make that decision. And
Yes,
that's what feminism
but we
is about.
do,
It's
but
about
we already
having-
have that choice.
We
If
do have that
I want to go
But
own my own
it's
company, I
being
can.
restricted.
Read.
It's being restricted. They were talking about a woman chasing after a high power career, about being in charge, being in a leadership position, and how much effort that takes. And he's like, it's being restricted. How is it being restricted? In California, you have to put women on the boards of major companies. How is that being restricted? These people are dumbasses.
That the beginning of feminism was going in the right
Humanizing
direction.
women,
It
right.
was humanizing women. It was making them equal to men. It was giving us the same opportunities so that we can go vote, so that I can go get a job, so that I can drive a car. Like
She can
there's
run
You could do all those things except for voting before 1920, right? You could have a job. That wasn't illegal. You could drive a car. That wasn't illegal. There were things you couldn't do, like you couldn't be seen if you were a school teacher, a female school teacher. You couldn't be seen in a car with a man who wasn't a male relative or your husband. So there were things like that, and that was probably a regional law too. I don't know if that was the whole country, but there's a good reason for that. There's a good reason for that. What kind of person do you want instilling knowledge into your child, helping raise your children? Do you want a floozy who's running around with all these different men? Or do you want a nice, chaste woman who's going to uphold societal values so that this thing we call civilization can continue on?
I know that men are not able to be men anymore because of the feminist, modern feminist propaganda. I coach men in my practice and they tell me like, I don't even know what I can do on a date anymore. Can I ask a woman out? Am I gonna get in trouble for this now? Like, I really like her. I kind of want to put my hand around her waist, but maybe that's gonna, I'm gonna be all over social media, this kind of thing. And I think men don't have.
I think it depends on whether or not you're on a foodie date. If you're on a foodie date, you can't touch her. If you're not on a foodie date, I think it'd probably be all right.
Balls anymore to just stand up and be a man, be dangerous. Be fierce.
I want to respond to a lot of what you
Respond,
said.
please.
Does anybody else want?
You make a really interesting point. However, I feel like a lot of the reasons why men can't actively express masculinity in a positive way is because of the patriarchal structures that we have. Part of where I'm coming from with this is I'm trans. So I was born female. Now I present as male. I came out socially and medically transitioned at 18.
Okay.
The feminist movement is what helps me feel empowered enough to be who I am and be a man.
Okay, I'm just going to refer to this clip from Lost in Space from 1965.
I don't know about your world, but in ours, women are treated as the equals of men.
How do you know? How do you know it was the feminist movement that allowed you to feel empowered? This person looks like he's like 22, 23. Okay, so maybe he's older. Maybe he's 28. Let's just assume that he's somewhere in that range, 23 to 28. He medically transitioned at 18 because it wasn't legal to do that before 18 back in those days. There's a new occurrence that's happening. How do you know it was the feminism that did that to you? No, it wasn't. It was this indoctrination system that we have going on. It has nothing to do with feminism or patriarchy, as you like to call it. It has to do with being woke, which is separate and above feminism. Feminism is a type of wokeness.
I can define myself as a man how I want to. I don't need somebody like Andrew Tate to be like, you're not a man unless you do this.
Yes, of course. Mr. Steroids here would be like, I need to be able to define what manhood is.
My son, I encourage him. I say, you are to be, and I really don't care the backlash. You're supposed to be attracted to women. And
Isn't
I tell
that a lot
him,
of pressure?
and I ask him,
What
who
if
are,
he's not?
Because life for transgender individuals, and my son's African American as well, is very freaking hard. I don't know if we can swear. I'm sorry.
You can.
It's very hard. Do you know this?
She's wrong there. It's like life for African people is harder than life for non-African people. I think that she's doing all right. She's obviously had some surgery. So if she can afford that, I think that she's doing okay. What hardships will her son have to face?
True.
Asking people or putting pressure on your son or putting pressure on my daughter to not.
I just tell him.
Okay, but to not be their true self, if that's truly how they feel,
But that's
it
not
feels
their
like that
true
would
self.
be.
No, they're not their true
that's
self.
this like
Thank you.
that's this way. It's
Thank you.
society has influenced everybody to
correct.
be
Yeah,
like,
so
you know.
When you say I can.
We see such a huge increase in LGBTQ people today. Where's that coming from? And especially considering it's like more people in California as a percentage of the population and more people in New York City as a percentage of the population. Fewer people in Indiana as a percentage of the population. Yeah, it's not social at all. No, not social.
Identify, I can be whatever I want. If I want to say, I'm Beyonce today, I can now just be Beyonce.
But do you
right?
actually believe that?
I do. I kind of feel like I don't think you
Can we
believe
talk
it.
about the
Genuinely
problem?
Yeah,
Let's go back.
So
The problem's
here's
about
the
men
other-
falling
Here's the
behind.
other thing. Men are far
So it matters what you believe, not what everybody else believes. If I walk outside and I say, I'm a woman, and everybody's looking at me like, dude, you're not a woman, then I think there's a problem there.
Is it because of feminism, or is there socioeconomic factors that we're not looking at?
Well, how do we
because,
define
well, no.
falling behind?
Let's
Yeah,
look,
what do you see as falling behind?
What's falling behind? So people in America, not just men, everybody is getting poor. This has nothing to do with
Well, that's not
feminism.
true.
No,
That's a mental state.
No,
That's
it's not
a
true.
mentality.
This is economic data. We are
I'm not
falling
getting
behind.
poor.
Well,
our
you can blame your president for that.
Not everybody's getting poorer. The rich are getting richer.
Okay,
And
back
the other
to
thing
prompt.
is, what do you define as masculinity? It can be subjective
Tell
from
us,
culture to culture.
what do you define
I think
masculinity?
You just said that nobody can define it except you. So a culture is the one that defines it.
masculinity is whatever you want it to be. It doesn't have to be this objective thing where it's like, oh, you're masculine, you're
How
not.
is
Like,
it- can it-
so it could be different from our society to another society. And actually, in some countries, like men who don't provide for their families or are not the sole provider are not seen
But
as
are we
masculine.
talking about other countries or are we talking about the
But
U.S.
even
right
here,
now?
actually, even here, there are people who will say that's demasculating for a man to make less money than his wife.
I appreciate everything everyone's saying. I do want to talk about the prompt. When I heard the prompt and I heard that, I thought about men falling behind, I thought more like mental health, like suicide is more common
Oh, we're
with
going
men.
to go here.
No,
Love
but it's
this one.
true. Like men
But it's such a
commit suicide at
it's not
higher
a cop
rates.
out. Like I'm not saying mental health isn't an issue. That it is an issue, and obviously a lot of men are experiencing a lot of pressure.
Have you heard like the term death of despair?
Men are committing suicide more. Men are
Right.
dying from alcohol-related illnesses more, and they're also dying from drug abuse and drug overdose more.
Correct.
And that's an increasing trend in society.
Yeah.
And then you
That's
see
true.
educational
It is
gaps.
No, there's no denying that like young men are abandoning colleges at a rapid
Yeah, it's a
rate.
lot of pressure to be a man.
They're also
Like
far
that-
lonelier than women are
Yep.
right now.
Yep.
And
Yeah,
that's
women are
why
the-
we're-
They're abandoning colleges. Women make up, they enroll in college at a 60% rate. Women are earning more than men nowadays, right?
Yeah, well, no, that is
hold on,
true.
hold on.
We can get to the wage gap.
It's about enrollment. So are they having other jobs? Yeah, probably. But I'm saying like men are not going to these institutions. Why?
When you're saying lack of enrollment, there's more entrepreneurials in the entrepreneurial space than ever before in history. So I believe a lot of people are opting out of college as we had to pursue their venture. So that could be part of the reason why the enrollment has declined.
Can I just go back to a point that you said really quick, where you talked about like the mental health of men and how the stigmatization of men addressing their mental health. What system are we in that makes it so that men have this big stigma around our mental health where we can't talk about it and the suicide rate goes up?
We're in a patriarchy, I'm sure. That's what it's all about, how men can't talk about their mental health. I've been to therapy. I buy self-help books, at least I used to. I read a bunch of them. I feel like I'm in a good place now, so I don't need all that stuff. I mean, at least in a functional place. So this whole notion that men can't talk about their issues, can't pursue their issues, is ridiculous. This person is coming from a very skewed perspective. I don't know what this person's background is other than he was a gay woman at one time, which, okay, you're a man now, so are you getting therapy? Because it sounds like you didn't for your homosexuality and your desire to transition, so.
Patriarchal system.
No, let me tell you.
Those are the bounds we are within currently.
There's a lot
That's toxic masculinity.
Just real quick, the systemic structures we are in are patriarchy. That is what has caused men to have this massive stigma around mental health, where we don't feel empowered to reach out. Men tend to not go to therapy. That leads to suicide. That leads to all of these big things. That's not caused by feminism. That was happening well before the feminist movement came into these new waves.
There's a lot of psychiatrists, psychologists, and economists, professors, all these people coming out saying that the actual psychology department is feminized. I know.
I'm processing what you're saying. The psychology
it's weird,
department?
but the way that everything's processed is for women. So women and men process information differently. Men are like this in their brain. Women are. It's all over. And like, what the hell does that mean?
Well, it's left brain, right brain.
When you process like men.
Men have been living lives of despair for centuries now, because men are the ones who have to deal with rejection, with the burden of holding up civilization. Women have the burden of producing humans. This is what the problem is for men. It's not that they don't seek mental health. It's that there's just too much asked of them.
I really need the male feminists also to respond, because I feel like they've spoken 20%. Once they're done with their thought, feel free to interrupt, but let them finish a sentence.
Well, I guess the systemic patriarchy of systematic patriarchs is failing us.
And I think men are alone. I heard you throw out the word loneliness, and that does feel true. I just don't think that feminism did that. I just think like the world is changing.
What you said really resonated with me when we define falling behind. What I think about with men is that high suicide rate, that likeliness and proclivity towards violence and aggression. I think about loneliness and not being in relationships with which young men are struggling with a lot right now.
How would you define what changed it then? I mean, the world is changing, yes, because we're propping women up and saying, you got to be in leadership roles, you got to have this much money, you got to do this on your own. There's no place for men now because women are taking all the jobs. There's no place for men now because women don't need to go to a man for financial stability. They can just do it on their own. So when you take away the incentive for interpersonal relationship, what are you going to end up with? A bunch of lonely men.
I thought you made a really great point that I totally agree with, where men are looking for these role models of how to embody masculinity because we are falling behind and a lot of people don't know how to act. What's really important, and what I've seen, at least in my experience.
What's that? Men are falling behind and they don't know how to act? But what about the patriarchy? Little Mr. Patriarchy here, who's all like, yeah, there's patriarchy. So the patriarchy isn't working apparently. What the hell?
Women should also be drafted into the military.
Let's do it.
At least these particular feminists are not being hypocritical on this subject matter. Equal rights, equal lefts.
A lot of people don't realize, like, nobody like actively chooses to be in sex work. You're usually going to sex work because of social situations.
Okay. What did you just say? Are you fucking retarded? Seriously?
Yeah, and then for the people who just want to do it and want to just like own their sexuality, own their body, and use it as a commodity, a way to make money, they should be able to do that in a way that is safe, in a way that they own all of the videos, all of the content that they make, and in a way that is equitable for them.
When it comes
Okay, fine then. All sexual harassment at work has to not be a problem then. Because sex work is legitimate work. If this is what you want, then I should be able to walk up to one of my subordinates, a female subordinate at my job, and be like, hey, if you have sex with me, then I'll pay you more money. And that should be perfectly legal. Or I'll give you a promotion. That should be perfectly legal. But that's illegal. That is illegal in the United States. You can't have it both ways. You can't have sex work being okay and sex work not being okay. It's ridiculous. This whole sex work thing is just so ridiculous. I don't like, it's just like the seatbelt laws. Why the hell are motorcycles allowed on the road, period, if there's seatbelt laws? This is so stupid. It's like, oh, you're much safer in a car if you get into an accident than you are on a motorcycle. Way, 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 way safer, right? Why the hell are motorcycles allowed on the streets if we're going to have seatbelt laws? So stupid.
Right off the bat, you said Mia Khalifa went from being a porn star to being a sports commentator. That is something that we should be directing women towards. It shouldn't be, okay, well, you know, she's going to go do an OnlyFans or she's going to be in 50 porn videos to get paid. When we're
So she's on the same train of there's social pressure to do this thing. No, women want to get wrecked. If women didn't just, want to have random sexual encounters, then there would not have been women who used me for my body in my life. And that has happened with more than one woman. So that's how it is. I mean, women want sex.
encouraging women to value themselves, value their body, value their talent, and take that elsewhere.
There's a lot of things in place, though, for women. Like, yeah, there's obviously a need if they're in maybe a lower economic class or something, but at the end of the day, that's more of like a morality topic, and so you can't really force that on everybody. I agree with you.
Right. The other thing would be is
all of this goes away. All of this goes away if we enact the patriarchy that the Mr. Anti-Patriarchy here is all against. If we go back to the ways of having women financially dependent on men, they never really were. Women were capable of being entrepreneurs. And then there's like, oh, well, hey, you're making the money that you earn instead of going, well, I went to work for at this job, but I can't make a living at it because they pay women less. Yeah, I understand why that's wrong. But at the same time, it was necessary to keep society functioning. 50 years on, now everything is falling apart.
It's not empowering, it's not glorifying, it's not owning your body. None of that stuff is true. No little girl, when they're 4 or 5, says, I want to grow up and be a hooker. OnlyFans is the biggest pimp of them all. They're still taking 20%, and your content still gets leaked a lot.
Well, that was eye-opening.
Men should take birth control.
Huh.
That's an interesting
This is I think it should be a choice.
Well, male birth control does exist. The problem is there hasn't been a lot of funding into
Right.
making it commercially available. It's about making it an equal responsibility all around. Especially if there's a more effective way, like a pill. They can't just whine about the side effects when they know that it can significantly decrease a woman's quality of life when she's dealing with all this.
Her chance of fertility, her chances of, I've never been on birth control, and I don't believe in taking it. I don't believe in putting anything that alters my body.
How is it that you worked in the sex industry, but you've never been on birth control? Seems to me that, yeah, that she's lying.
Saying either party should have it, because personally, I don't think that anyone should put that stuff in their body. But if one's going to do it, and then the other one should have the option of doing it.
Yeah, if we're in a world where women have the access to it and men have the access to it, should is just such a strong
It's
word.
so
Make
strong.
the choice for your own body. That's why I didn't walk forward. But yeah, if you both have the option.
If men had the right to birth control, then they would ultimately be coinciding and deciding if a child should come to life. Right now, women ultimately
Have all
have
the
that
power.
decision. No matter what you say, she gets to decide if she goes through with it or not. And I think that's kind of problematic for many reasons.
The reason that there isn't male birth control is because society wants to control men. We have a system where if a man gets a woman pregnant, the woman can cut the man completely out of the child's life and yet still get paid by the man to raise that child. This is what we have done. This is the patriarchy, right? Here you go. Mr. Anti-Patriarchy on here. There's your patriarchy for you. That's what the patriarchy did, right? That didn't happen until after feminism, but it was done by the patriarchy.
I'm not for male birth control by force. If somebody wants to take that, yes, but I think there needs to be more comprehensive research and stuff. Female birth control is a little sketchy at times because there have been incidences where they've had to recall stuff because they
Multiple times, yeah.
I think one of them was the old Yaz. They had to recall
Yeah.
it because it was causing blood clots or something.
Yeah,
Most,
that's very
most
common.
birth controls cause.
Do.
Yeah,
That's what's
and
called-
I hope we get to a place
Yeah.
where we're not using things where hormones, because the other thing is a lot of people get blood tests to check their hormones on a regular basis. And actually, technically, birth control, female birth control, is an oral steroid.
Yeah.
So that's what it is. It's actually a 19 more, and people are taking steroids.
Surprise, surprise, Mr. Steroids knows about steroids.
For both sexes.
Unfortunately, the pharmaceutical industry is so based on profit that if they think men aren't going to take male birth control, they're not going to put in the research, they're not going to create it, they're not going to invest in it. So if we socialize and say, hey, this is a responsibility men should also have, then we can get research into all birth control to make it safer and more effective for everyone, so that we don't, not everyone has to be experiencing these horrible side effects.
And how are you drawing that conclusion? So men wouldn't take it. Do you have evidence that men wouldn't take it? Do you have a rational argument that supports this point of view, or is it just your fifis? I think we all know the answer to that question.
I was raised by a single mom. On top of that, I was also adopted. So my birth mother had to make an incredibly difficult choice to decide not to pursue raising this child.
Surprise, surprise, surprise. Wow, I am shocked. Shocked, I tell you.
I am shocked. Shocked. Well, not that shocked.
Woe is me, I can't have a kid because I'm too poor. No, we live in a country where, like I said earlier, we have the opportunities to pursue what we can and what we want to do. And I don't think the feminist movement has any place to tell someone that they're too dumb or too poor to be able to have a kid.
Oh, absolutely not.
But that is what the feminist movement is doing.
Yes, they are, Mr. Patriarchy. The feminist movement says that, oh, if you're a housewife, you're bad.
My wife was very specific and like direct with me when we started dating. She's like, I want to have kids. This is important to me. Are you on board or not? And that was a goal that we set for ourselves. But she's not just a mom. You know, there's other things. She has other ambitions.
She should be just a mom. I mean, you should be giving as much attention to your children as you can. I don't know what he means by she's not just a mom. What else is she doing? Does she have a part-time job that she can work at night so you can like watch the kids? I don't know what's going on here, you know, so.
Men need to be masculine to keep their families safe.
Of course he's going to step forward. Look at him.
Steroids steps forward. Of course he does, because he's freaking, his arms are as big around as my legs, at least, probably bigger.
There are situations, like for example, like I'm like 230 pounds, my girlfriend's like 110, 5'2". Like there's no way if somebody breaks in the house that she's gonna fight them off, unless she has a gun on her or something. But so in that situation, I would fill that masculine role. But like anybody can be strong. Anybody, like in a situation where I'm not there, I would hope if we had kids, she could protect them and defend them like the best she could. Where I
like how this guy talks the talk, but he doesn't walk the walk. He's like, he says, yeah, I'm a feminist, and then he dates a very feminine woman. Okay.
I guess I'm just not entirely sure what, like, just masculinity in general has to do with keeping people safe.
Could I quickly respond? And
of course you don't know what masculinity in general has to do with keeping people safe. Throughout history, men have been the soldiers, men have been the warriors, men have been the protectors and providers. That's just biology. Okay? Men have been the ones who stood up and fought the animals, fought the bear, the lion, the tiger. Not that women can't, but who is stronger? Who is more likely to be able to kill a wild animal, a man or a woman?
The differences between men and women should be celebrated.
100% they should be celebrated. We should be encouraging the word actress. I don't know why we want to erase women. It's ridiculous. All right, well, that's all I got for this one here. Go check out the original. They did bring up some other interesting talking points, so it is worth watching. I'll leave a link down in the comments to the original video. And now here's a man throwing a temper tantrum in a market.
Now get your ass out of here. Hey, God!
The goddamn mower. Ah! He's on this goddamn place.